Hi everybody, it is Sunday, October 12th, 2014. Thanks for stopping by. You know, I've been really sickened lately by all of the Islamophobia in the mainstream media. On cable, it's just been really awful watching all of these people going crazy, bashing Muslims, criticizing Islam, and none of these people have ever met a Muslim in their lives. None of them have seen a Quran in person, let alone read one. None of them have ever been to an Islamic country. They have no clue whatsoever. But based on things they see on the internet, they feel comfortable judging and dismissing and dehumanizing 1/4 of the human population, which, just happens to be in many places either oppressed or directly attacked by the West. And we're starting to see people calling for extermination of Muslims and a final solution to the Muslim problem. I'm not kidding, folks. This is real. They're actually using those words. They're talking about a final solution. And if you were to ask them about it, they say, "Oh no, we're not talking about all Muslims. We're just criticizing the religion. We're not saying they're all bad," but then like 5 minutes later they'll say we need to exterminate them. So it's incredibly duplicitous. So that's the backup position. If anybody questions them, they can say, "Oh, we're just talking about extremists and we don't really want to kill them all." And then if you say, "Well, that's good because we all know that most Muslims are not extremists," they'll say, "Well, there's these polls, and the polls say that they are all extremists." And so they go back and forth. Basically, they want to cover their asses and pretend like they're being reasonable. And then if you try and actually take them up on being reasonable, they immediately go back to the let's exterminate them all because they're all evil position. See how that works? I mean, they're talking out of both sides of their mouths constantly. And that's what Bill Maher did. He was, when Ben Affleck told him, "Okay, you're generalizing," he could say, "Oh no, we're not generalizing. We're just talking about extremists. We're not saying that everybody's bad." And then when he said, "Most Muslims don't believe all that horrible stuff," Bill Maher said, "Really? Don't almost all of them want to kill infidels?" That's what he did. That's exactly what he did. And then they had these polls to back it up, which is just ludicrous. It doesn't prove anything. That somebody conducted a poll in some particular place at some particular time, and some say 25% of the people answered the wrong thing. That doesn't mean anything. But what I'd like to point out about Bill Maher is that he's a stand-up comedian. Now, Bill Maher, most people think he's some kind of intellectual heavyweight, that he is some kind of authority, that when he speaks, it comes from a depth of knowledge and experience, and that he's some kind of scholar who could be trusted. That's what people tend to think when they think of Bill Maher. But Bill Maher is a stand-up comedian, full stop. That is the extent of his credentials. He has no other authority. So just remember that when Bill Maher is talking, he's a stand-up comedian. And I think that he has managed to bamboozle a lot of people because he goes around mocking religious beliefs. So Bill Maher goes around and talks to people about how talking snakes aren't real, about how you can't get two of every animal in the world and put it on a boat. The world can't be 6,000 years old. Things like this that everybody with a working brain knows. I would posit that the only people who don't know that are fanatical fundamentalists. And in a way, even they know it. Even fanatical fundamentalists know that you can't get two of every animal in the world and put it on a boat, that you're not going to find talking snakes anywhere, that women weren't made from a rib. They already know that. They just choose not to listen to their own knowledge. They choose to live in a fantasy world where they can know basic scientific facts and yet still believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible because it's cognitive dissonance. So I'm not so sure that Bill Maher is even smarter than fanatical fundamentalists. The only difference is he chooses to live in the real world and they don't. And so he has bamboozled a lot of people into thinking, well, he knows so much more than all these other people, therefore he must be really intelligent and erudite and studied. And maybe he is erudite and studied on the art of telling jokes in front of a crowd, but that's it. And other than that, he's an idiot, an ignoramus. And Sam Harris is pretty similar. Now, Sam Harris is just a racist, and a pretty fanatical one, if you ask me. Sam Harris has come out in support of racial profiling. He has argued for dropping nuclear bombs on the entire Middle East in order to clear out all the riffraff. In other words, to commit genocide. That's what he wants to do and what he has argued for. And that's what any redneck would tell you is the solution to the Middle East crisis is just to kill all the Arabs and start over. That's exactly what Sam Harris thinks like. He thinks exactly like some ordinary, disinterested redneck from the South who doesn't know anything about the Middle East and just doesn't care about those people and wants to kill them all. Not even actively. Those people in, those rednecks in the South, they're not really hateful about it. They just don't know and don't care. It's not a big issue to them. They say, screw it, just bomb it. But Sam Harris, he knows more and he hates more. And he wants to do the exact same thing. Now, he is a neuroscientist, from what I understand. And maybe he does know a lot about neuroscience, but he doesn't know a whole lot about Islam. And he doesn't care to know. He knows more than some guy working at an auto shop in Mississippi, but not a whole lot more. Not a whole lot more than that guy. Surprisingly enough. So he's just a racist. And when he was talking about this, he even said, we don't tolerate white theocracy. Now notice that word, white theocracy. He's immediately putting it in terms of race when he didn't need to. Probably just a slip on his part. So Christians are the white people, Muslims are the black people. See? So we don't tolerate white theocracy. Why should we tolerate black people having theocracy? That's, in his mind, it's all about race. And he never advocated dropping nuclear bombs on the Bible Belt to clear out all the Christians, but he advocated dropping nuclear bombs on the Middle East to clear out the black people. Gee, I wonder why that is. And so, finally, when all these people are talking about criticizing religion, they're full of shit. That's not what they're doing at all. They're not criticizing religion. Now, just think about this, okay? These people are saying, that FGM is wrong. Female genital mutilation. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be murdering people for no reason. You shouldn't be, killing infidels or apostates. You shouldn't be committing terrorism. You shouldn't be, chopping off hands if somebody steals something. Things like that. Now, all of these things, if you go to a mosque somewhere, don't take my word for it, try it. Please, if you don't believe me, try it. Go to any gathering of Muslims, go to an interfaith dialogue meeting, go to a mosque, go to their homes, and talk to them and say, okay, let's debate religion. Now, I think murder is wrong. What is your defense of murder? That person is going to look at you like you're a crazy person. You can say, okay, I don't think you should murder apostates or infidels. Why would you do that? This person is again going to say, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you crazy? Whoever said that was a good thing? I don't think you should be beating your wife. That person is going to get very offended. They're going to say, well, of course you shouldn't beat your wife. Who's arguing this? Okay, you shouldn't chop off people's hands. Well, yeah. Right? Duh. What rock have you been living under? You think I really approve of all that stuff? Do I look like I'm crazy to you? That's what they're going to say. They're not advocating all this stuff in the first place. They're constantly standing up and saying terrorism is wrong, violence is wrong, we should be tolerant and peaceful and all that. And then you can come to them and say, terrorism is wrong, violence is wrong. And they're going to say, you're not listening to us. Have you heard the words that are coming out of my mouth? That's what they're going to say. Now, if you go to a mosque, almost all of the people are going to say that, and there might be one or two crazy people there that are going to say, well, yeah, maybe murdering people is awesome. Sometimes people like that exist that believe in murdering and raping and all that. Generally, they're not going to advertise that fact, but there are people out there who are evil, and they might disagree with you, but they're crazy. And they exist in mosques, they exist in churches, they exist in political clubs, they exist among atheists. I mean, they're everywhere. But the general feeling is not that, we ought to be out murdering people. And if you think that, then you're a complete ignoramus. And it's very irrational to think that other people are actually like that. So, what these people are doing is they're just going to Muslims and saying, when did you stop beating your wife? Now, that's not a critique of Islam. That's an accusation. That's a demonization. And, Muslims are not really, they're not all the same. They don't all believe the same thing. They're all different. They all have different beliefs. And these people, when they tell you, okay, look at all these polls, they'll give you, what they think are the worst examples of people answering the wrong questions. But they have no idea about people answering the right way. Like in certain places that are prosperous and stable and aren't going through wars or ruled over by Western puppets, people answer the right way on those polls, but they don't know about that. They'll tell you, it's everywhere Muslims answer the same way on these polls, but they don't. They're not even paying attention to the polls. And I pointed this out to somebody last night, and he didn't want to answer any of those questions about Muslims in America, Muslims in Indonesia, Muslims in Turkey, Muslims in all these other places that they don't, think that you ought to kill apostates by, say, 25%. So he inflated it and said that it was the majority that just wanted to kill people and that they're all the same everywhere. And I just said, okay, go look at that link you just gave me and prove yourself wrong. They're not even paying attention. And so, what I would say is that all these people, it's really sort of like, say somebody in China, a Buddhist in China, were to look at Christians. And they never met a Christian before in their life. Never been to anywhere in the West. Always lived in China. Always been a Buddhist. Never seen a Bible, let alone read one. And they were to criticize Christianity by saying, committing genocide is wrong. And, you guys ought to think about that. You shouldn't commit genocide. It says so in the Bible to commit genocide, which it does. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that. In the Bible it says to murder your children if they talk to you the wrong way. Maybe that's a bad idea, Christians. Christian world, stop murdering your children when they talk back to you, because that's wrong. And they could even come up with stories of Christians murdering their kids to prove it. They could conduct polls, say in Alabama, and 25% of the Alabama people who are Christian might say some pretty bad things. I've known people that are Christian that have told me some really horrific things that would never act out on those things, but they believe these things because it's in the Bible, right? And so they would say, kill unbelievers. But they wouldn't ever actually do that. Okay? So there are Christians who will answer the wrong way on those polls too, and Chinese Buddhists who have no clue whatsoever could point that out. And they could say, they answer the wrong way on polls, they believe in murdering their kids, they believe in committing genocide, they believe in killing unbelievers, they believe in killing gay people, they believe in killing anyone who eats shrimp or wears blended fabrics. All of these are not criticisms of these subhuman savages. They're just a criticism of their beliefs. They're a critique of their religion, see. The religion of these savages needs to be criticized. Because look at all these savage, devilish things these Christians are doing. All because of religion. That's exactly what Bill Maher and Sam Harris and all of these people who follow this stand-up comedian and this racist are doing. They're all doing exactly that. And parading themselves as the enlightened, civilized, advanced people who are pointing out the flaws of the savages. And, meanwhile, people are talking about exterminating Muslims and a final solution. And if you are criticizing Islam or, doing something that you claim is criticizing Islam, which really is just demonizing people based on falsehoods, and you don't stand up to all this genocidal talk, you're a good German. And you haven't learned a goddamn thing from the Holocaust. And I'm ashamed to be the same species as you people. Thanks for watching.